welcome to another edition of Two Steps Ahead Podcast. Two Steps Ahead Podcast encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom, and this is our 200th podcast episode. Hard to believe that it's been about 4.5 years since the show started back in October of 2019, and in roughly about 225 weeks, putting out 200 episodes, something that I'm proud to have done. And I thank you for riding shotgun on this journey over the last 4.5 years. And we look forward to what the future has to hold. But episode 200 of Two Steps Ahead podcast. So welcome. On the show, a little bit later, we're going to talk about how important it is to have a strong mind, body, and soul in order to navigate the world we live in, especially things that happen to us personally, in our personal world, our personal space, personal bubble. But first, the 10 Commandments. Ever think the 10 Commandments would cause so much controversy? Why is everybody upset about the 10 Commandments? Well, let's take a look at it. So according to the state of Louisiana, they have put into place a law that any classroom, especially a public school classroom that takes funds from the state, will be required to post the 10 Commandments in the classroom. The 10 Commandments posting has to be of certain requirements, basically a poster size type posting with legible lettering. So it has to be able to be read. And this has sparked a lot of controversy, a lot of protest, a lot of pushback from people because they think it's either a violation of the separation of church and state or it's religious indoctrination. In fact, California Governor Gavin Newsom, he was so outraged by it that he put out a tweet talking about how bad Louisiana's education system is, and yet they prioritize posting the 10 Commandments. Well, I think Gavin Newsom needs to check his own state and see what's going on there with the crime and the education and people fleeing in mass exodus. But the 10 Commandments, I mean, let's take a look at them and see exactly what the 10 Commandments are. Now, if you're not familiar with them, I wonder where you've been, but perhaps you don't follow religion. Perhaps you just don't care. Perhaps you get your education from social media, which is probably then misinformation, aka lies. But the 10 Commandments given to the people of Israel back in the Old Testament as a code of conduct, if you will, how they should behave. And this is pretty much what they are in a condensed version. So the first one is have no other gods before me. So God telling the Israelites, don't worship anything else but me. Okay, we'll put that into a religious category. You shall not make idols, which goes with the first commandment of having no other gods before me. So, okay, we'll put that one in the theological category. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Okay, so the first three has to do with God's relationship to the Israelites, the people of Israel. So we'll put those three in a theological category. But what about the rest of them? How much theology, how much indoctrination are there in the commandments 4 through 10? Well, the fourth one is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Okay. But if you look at it from a little different perspective, God could be calling this to be a day of rest. So yes, he wants the Sabbath day, keep it holy, and many people will celebrate a Sunday worship service or maybe a Saturday synagogue or somewhere in the mix now that we're into modern society. A lot of the old Sunday churches will have Saturday night services. But again, what about taking a day and having a day of rest, having a day to recoup? Our schedules are busy enough. Our lives are busy enough. So what if we did set aside a day? And maybe you didn't worship, but maybe you just took a day off from everything else that was going on. Spend time with the family. Maybe spend time with some friends. Maybe spend time working on yourself. Whatever you did, but You stepped away from life for a day, and you weren't involved in the hustle and bustle of everything going on. If you had a day of rest, I'm sure your life would be completely different as far as the stress, which is we're going to get to that a little bit later. But you took a day off. What about honor your father and mother? Is that really theological indoctrination, or is that just something that should be instilled in young people? There's a lot of disrespect going on in society today, a lot of disrespect towards authority, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be school teachers and administration, whether it be coaches, whether it be parents. There's a lack of respect towards those in authority over kids, and starting with honoring your father and mother. A lot of people will not honor their father and mother, don't like their father and mother, but maybe that's something that needs to be instilled in kids and young people, is to respect authority. I mean, look at California and the lack of respect they have for the laws out there. Look at places like New York, Chicago, a lot of places where the respect for law. And that's not even the political end of it. That's the brazen crime that is taking place, flaunting the laws and making the citizens of the people unsafe. Thou shalt not murder. I think that's also in the penal code, isn't it? The law, if you kill somebody, you go to prison. You shall not commit adultery. I think in most society, having an affair is frowned upon, unless you like your pineapple upside down. And we're not talking about upside down cake. Thou shalt not steal. Again, I think that's in the penal code or legal system. You can have penalties for stealing, but again, it depends on where you're at, because if you're in California or if you're in New York and other places, there really is no penalty for stealing. But for the most part, not stealing is a good thing. Do not bear false witness against your neighbor. What about lying? There seems to be a lot of lying, what people like to call fake information, misinformation, Russian propaganda, all the way from government down to your neighbors and your community. A lot of people lying, bearing false witness. And then the last one, covet. Do not covet. Do not wish and desire and plot to get something that belongs to somebody else that you want. Kind of goes along with stealing. So when you take a look at these 10 commandments, 3 of them, maybe 3.5 if you want to consider the Sabbath day and keep it holy, but a majority of them aren't theological. They're just a code of conduct, something, a set of rules, if you will, to live by. And if you followed these, society, life would be a lot better. So Gavin Newsom says that education in Louisiana is 47th out of 50, if that's even true. And Louisiana decides to focus on the 10 commandments. Well, maybe instilling some of these principles in kids would go a long way to flipping society. I mean, how many young people have we seen in California run rampant with crime, with activities, breaking the law? I mean, there's video out there of them rushing the mini marts, the AMPMs, and stealing. There's gangs of youth running through San Francisco and Oakland, so much so that stores are closing down. Walgreens, CVS, places like that, having to, if they're still open, having to lock up things, goods, and put them behind locked glass cases and stuff because of the theft. So if you were going to instill do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, don't lie against somebody, maybe honor authority, these are probably some pretty good things that people need to have in them. Because right now, society does not live by a code of ethics, a code of anything. There's nothing that drives them except the ebb and flow of the tides of society, whatever that might be. I mean, think about this. Just not too long ago, all of social media was upset about, well, let's go with Free Palestine. First, it was we had a Free Palestine. Then it was a place kicker for the NFL that had a religious message at a graduation for a religious college. So a religious message to a specific group of people that were graduating from a religious college that held that same belief, and the whole world gets upset about that. And then I think prior to that was, we had to cancel all the celebrities because apparently at the Met Gala, they're spending a lot of money on whatever it is they do at the Met Gala. Somebody triggered everybody with a comment about let them eat cake. And then we had to cancel all these successful women and others that were at the Met Gala because they weren't doing whatever it is that the masses on social media wanted them to do. Well, we went from Free Palestine to let's cancel everybody to this NFL player to now I don't even know what's going on. Maybe it's the 10 Commandments now. Everyone's outraged by that. And this is just in a span of what, a few weeks? So what happened to Free Palestine? Did we give up on that? What happened to canceling those celebrities and those rich people that weren't doing whatever it is you thought they should be doing? What happened to the place kickers? He no longer tops. You're not protesting him anymore. And so people will just jump from thing to thing to thing. And now it's the 10 Commandments. And next up is probably some more Roe v. Wade type stuff. And then who knows what it's going to be. I mean, the assault on kids is already continuing. You have laws in California and other places that are stripping parents from their parental rights. You can now not inform parents about things that their kids are doing, whether it's changing their identity, changing their pronouns. You can now bring young women across state lines into the sanctuary state of California for an abortion. And it's not the parent. Is that not kidnapping? I mean, take a look at everything that's going on, and one side will say this is okay, even though when you look at it logically and with reason and common sense, it's like, that's not okay. And so you jump on the 10 Commandments and say that it's religious indoctrination, but it's actually some things, a code of conduct, a set of rules that people should be living by. Because yeah, do you want to be killed? Probably not. Do you want things stolen from you? Probably not. Do you want somebody that you're in a relationship with to be in a relationship with somebody else at the same time and not tell you about it? Probably not. Do you want to keep working 7 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day just to make ends meet? Or would you rather have a day off, perhaps to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do, spend time with family, friends, maybe take a vacation, whatever, binge watch anything on video streaming services? Yeah, you probably do want a day off. Would you want to be honored as a parent, honored as a teacher? I mean, we have so many problems in schools with the disrespect from students towards teachers, behavior problems. We've talked about it on this show many times, why teachers are leaving the profession of education. And a lot of it has to do with discipline. Granted, the parents are also part of the problem, but it starts with honoring your father and your mother, honoring authority, respecting authority. Kids today just don't respect authority. So yeah, so maybe some of this, if you're not religious, some of this is still good to follow. Now, the other argument that people talk about is, oh, well, if you're going to put the 10 Commandments up, you should put the pillars of Islam and other religious things up on the walls too. That's their response. Okay, well, let's take a look at that. What about the pillars of Islam? Should they be posted? Well, let's take a look at them. Well, the first one, or at least one of the pillars, is that there is only really one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And that's the first pillar. Worship only Allah and Muhammad as his messenger. That's a religious-based ideology. The first commandment over here is, have no other gods before me. Here, worship Allah and Muhammad, his messenger. Okay. What about the second pillar of Islam? Offering prayers 5 times a day. Another theological, religious tenet, you could say. The third one, giving charity, alms or charity. Well, that could be something that students could learn from. Being charitable to others, helping others, making sure others are taken care of as well. What about going to a pilgrimage to Mecca? That's the fourth pillar in no particular order, which, if you haven't heard or not, this year's pilgrimage has been marred by thousands of deaths, mysterious deaths, they say, because there's not a lot of information coming out of Mecca. But a lot of pilgrimages are being ended short because people are dying. So I don't think anybody wants to do their Hajj to Mecca right about now. And the other one is fasting in the month of Ramadan. So those are your 5 pillars. Well, a lot of it really wouldn't. So post them. If you want to post them, post them. A lot of them really wouldn't apply to anybody. But if you want to put them up. Because, yeah, charity, giving to others, helping others is always a good thing. Well, what about the basic tenets of Hinduism? Well, they teach basically 4 things. One is dharma, ethics, and duties. So it talks about having ethics and the duties that are required of you. And a lot of it has to do with good things. You can actually go and do some research if you want to check it out, the specifics of it. But it all has to do with some good things going on, you doing good. So ethics and duties. Artha, work and prosperity. Doing hard work, prospering from it. The next one, kama, I believe it is, passion and desires. And then moksha, the liberation from the cycle of, I think it's basically the reincarnation. But the most important belief, the day-to-day belief, is that you need to pursue these things in order to do good so that your afterlife or your reincarnation is better. So the tenets of Hinduism is to do good. Okay, post those up. I don't think a lot of people quite understand them, but it's doing good. So far, there's a pattern outside of Islam, which requires Ramadan, which requires a trip to Mecca, praying 5 times a day and doing charity. So far, nothing of these would be a negative or a detriment to anybody that wanted to look at them. What about Buddha? 3 universal truths. Everything in life is not permanent. It's always changing, which is true. The only thing that's guaranteed in life is death, taxes, and change. Because nothing is permanent, a life based on possessing things doesn't make you happy. So possessions don't make you happy. Don't steal. Don't covet. Possessions don't make you happy. There is no eternal, unchanging soul, and self is just a collection of changing characteristics and attributes. So maybe that's universal truth files under theology for Buddhism. What about the 4 noble truths of Buddhism? Human life has a lot of suffering, which is true. The cause of suffering is greed. The love of money is the root of all evil, according to the Bible. There is an end to suffering. And then the end to suffering is to follow the middle path. Not really sure what that is, but I'm sure we can follow that under theology. So when you look at all these tenets, these commandments, these belief systems that these different religions of the world have, and people are thinking in their sarcastic way, oh, just post them. If you're going to post the commandments, post these other things. Yeah, well, maybe that's okay. Because it looks like a lot of them have to do with doing good towards other people, doing good so that you can benefit somehow. Now, whether you believe that type of religion or not is kind of irrelevant to the conversation. You decide that. But if you're just posting them just on display, like the American flag, I mean, there's a lot of schools that don't even do the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. But if you're just having it on the wall, is it any different than the pride flag? Is it any different than the indoctrination that the LGBTQ? Is it any more dangerous than a teacher like this?
This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own, teaching alongside another queer neurodivergent educator, and we have been rocking our Tuesday class. We've been talking about gender and skin color and consent and empathy and our bodies and autonomy. It's been fabulous. But our teaching team is shifting and a new person is being onboarded, someone with many years of experience. So today at the lunch table, when the topic of gender and genitals came up, one of our students plainly looked up and said, "Well, I'm a girl today, but I know that teacher Co isn't." No, they're NB. And the look on the incoming teacher's face was priceless. She was shocked in a good way, and she just looked around at the two of us and said, "This class is incredible, and I am so impressed."
So this teacher's outright giddy that she is teaching 2-year-olds about genitals. NB, whatever that is. I'm a girl today, but I know that the teacher isn't. 2-year-olds talking about genitals. Is that not indoctrination? Is that not more dangerous than posting the 10 Commandments? We played clips like that. You can go to social media and see it. There was a teacher out in California that eventually got fired because, in essence, she took the American flag down because it offended her, but yet told the students they could pledge their allegiance to the pride flag. If you're posting the pride flag, does that not say something? Is that not making a statement? Which I find it kind of humorous in a way that the LGBT have adapted the rainbow, because the rainbow comes from God. The rainbow is first, or makes its first appearance in the Bible. So the rainbow is a part of the Bible. Whether it's now Skittles using it, Taste the Rainbow, LGBT, doesn't matter where it comes from, or Lucky Charms. It came from the Bible. And so if you're going to say the 10 Commandments violates the separation of church and state, well, wouldn't that be the same as the rainbow? And the other thing, too, when you take a look at it, it's time to start really talking about LGBT ideology for what it is. It's theology. There are prominent churches, like the Methodist Church, for example, some Lutheran churches, so some mainstream denominations that have ordained LGBT pastors, ministers, men, women, that are, or whatever they identify as, that are pushing LGBT ideology / theology, preaching from the pulpit on Sundays across this country. Is it not time to identify the LGBT agenda as a religion, as a theology? Because it is being taught from the pulpits, preached from the pulpits. There's even something called the Queen James Bible that has taken the Bible and completely twisted it to fit LGBT ideology. Is that not then a separation of church and state violation to have anything LGBT in the church? In the schools, because it violates that church school separation? Need to start looking at things. As things are changing, we need to start adapting those changes to everything. But see, it's one side pushing their agenda. We get enraged because someone says the 10 Commandments should be posted. Separation of church and state. But yeah, it's okay to push ideology like genitalia LGBT talk to a 2-year-old that probably doesn't even know or understand anything about it. Some other reaction to the 10 Commandments was that this was a common one, something along the lines of like, if your Christianity wants to put 10 Commandments in schools, but take free lunch out of them, you're worshiping something other than Jesus. I'm not really sure who wants to take free lunches out of schools, but then people come up with the most ridiculous things. Or somebody posted, you can't be a conservative and oppose posting the 10 Commandments in schools. There is a political tradition that has been supported, stripping public education clean of any reference to God in Scripture in the name of neutrality. It's called liberalism. Somebody else wrote, again, these are not specific because these people wrote them, but it's kind of like the general idea, the general feel that a lot of the general sentiment, I guess you could say, that a lot of people are feeling out there, and they just happen to be capsulated in these particular messages. People are so riled today with the 10 Commandments after what we are seeing with the LGBTQ. It's well deserved. You push your extremism on us. Now it's being pushed back. Maybe some of you all are mad and could use a little Jesus in your life. Stay triggered. And you're starting to see that a little bit more pushback from the other side. You know, this whole intolerant in the name of tolerance has gone too far. And so some of the people that are being hated, being called names, Christian nationalists, bigots, homophobes, and all that, are starting to push back because they're being tired of it. They're tired of being called all this because it's not true, but it's the agenda that's being pushed. And that's what we're seeing. So when you have the 10 Commandments out there and people are being triggered, or you have the opportunity, or maybe the possibility, I guess is the word, that Trump's going to be in office, one side is triggered by that, and they try to do all these nasty things. Well, what does it come down to? Well, it comes down to mind, body, and soul. When you lack a strong mindset, when you lack your physical fitness, and I'm not talking about being some Adonis or Fabio or whatever they refer to these days, but I'm talking about just having a fitness level in you that allows you to deal with life, because your mind, your body, and your soul have to be in line. If one of them are out of line, then the rest of your body and the rest of who you are is going to start to decay and collapse. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, first off, you need to start with, that mindset. If you're going through life, whatever stage you are in life, if you're going through life and you haven't realized by now that change, like we talked about earlier, death, taxes, and change is the thing that is going to be a constant in your life. Good change, bad change. You're in a relationship, you're out of a relationship. You have a job, you're out of a job. You're riding high in the stock market, you're riding low. There's going to be these ups and downs in life. And maybe it started out when you were younger. Maybe you were a nerd. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe whatever circumstance came your way when you were younger. Have you gotten over it? Or have you allowed that to dictate who you are today? If you were the one that was bullying, if you were the one that was an elitist, if you were one that was that way, have you allowed that to affect your life? And sure, maybe you've gotten places, but look around you. How true are your relationships? How true are your friendships? But most importantly is, if you've struggled through life, your mindset is dictating to you how to live. And if you have a negative mindset from your youth, if you have a negative mindset from things that happened to you, maybe even not so long ago, if you have that, if you dwell on that negativity, then things and opportunities and chance of things getting better are going to be limited. Here's Jordan Peterson.
Maybe you are a loser, and maybe you're not. But if you are, you don't have to continue in that mode. Maybe you just have a bad habit. Maybe you're even just a collection of bad habits. Nonetheless, even if you came by your poor posture, honestly, even if you were unpopular or bullied at home or in grade school, it's not necessarily appropriate now. Circumstances change. If you slump around with the same bearing that characterizes a defeated lobster, people will assign you a lower status, and the old counter that you share with crustaceans sitting at the very base of your brain will assign you a low dominance number. Then your brain will not produce as much serotonin. This will make you less happy and more anxious and sad, and more likely to back down when you should stand up for yourself. It will also decrease the probability that you will get to live in a good neighborhood, have access to the highest quality resources, and obtain a healthy, desirable mate. It will render you more likely to abuse cocaine and alcohol as you live for the present in a world full of uncertain futures. It will increase your susceptibility to heart disease, cancer, and dementia. All in all, it's just not good. Circumstances change, and so can you.
Circumstances change, and so can you. So if you're dealing with bad circumstances, you can change them. You can have the power to change them. It might take effort. It might take drive. It might take something in you that you don't think you have, but you can overcome your bad circumstances. If you continue to wallow in the mire, that's all you're going to do. Misery loves company. That's all you're going to do. You're going to continue to spiral downward until you hit rock bottom. And then what? Maybe then after you hit rock bottom, if you don't change, you go into the abyss where there is no coming back. But life will continue to throw things at you, obstacles, hurdles. Kind of like I've mentioned it before, you're at the beach and the waves keep coming in. They keep crashing, coming in. They're not going to stop. Now, you can be hit by those waves, and when you get hit by those waves, your reaction is either going to be positive or negative. Hey, this is fun. I'm going to go splash in the waves. I'm going to bodyboard. I'm going to surf. I'm going to boogie board. I'm going to do whatever. Or you're going to be like, I'm out of here, and I'm going to go and just sit on the sand and wallow in the mire. Or you can have fun. Now, sometimes those waves can be really huge, and we all need to take precaution and be like, okay, I need to go and sit this out for a little bit because the things that are coming are a little bit more than what I can handle. So I need to kind of retreat and kind of figure out how I'm going to approach this and maybe get a little bit stronger, maybe get myself into better condition before I go back out there. And that's fine too. We don't have to go out there and drown and think that because we have this ego and we can do whatever we want to do, we're going to go do it. No, we do reason. We do logic. We do common sense. We address the situation. But when we are dealing with the negative, sometimes we lose all that and we just dwell on the negative. Negativity is not good. It has a lot of bad things that will happen. A lot of unhealthy effects to the body, to the mind, to the soul. It will defeat you, but circumstances change. You can overcome those bad circumstances, but you have to prepare yourself for that. Once again, Jordan Peterson.
Life is difficult, and you cannot protect your children. What you can do is prepare them, and you can prepare them to be strong and courageous and truthful and resilient and reciprocal in their interactions with other people. And that means you equip them for what life will be, which is at minimum a series of difficult challenges, and often more than that, because of course people go through very difficult times in their lives. And a resilient person is capable of standing up to things in the face of fear and moving forward voluntarily, convinced of their own competence and ability to prevail. And so your primary goal as a parent, apart from facilitating your child's social desirability, which is a major obligation on your part, is to encourage your children and I mean that literally, to instill in them a sense of courage in the face of the difficulties of life, and not to protect them from that. We don't even want to be protected from those difficulties, because a major part of life and its meaning is the challenge that comes with confronting difficulties.
Life is difficult. There's no doubt about that. There is no easy street. Sure, people make it seem like it's easy. Social media puts on this false persona that everybody tries to pursue. I want to be like that person. That person must be living it up. That person must have the best life. That person, because what you see on the screen is different than what you see in real life. And in real life, they are struggling just as much as you. Sure, they might have more money, maybe a better house or living conditions, but they're still dealing with the problems that life sends them, whether it's relationships, whether it's self-confidence, whether it's something internal or external. They're still dealing with it. So you got to prepare yourself. Be prepared for all this to come. If you are doing well, great. Continue to do whatever it is that you need to do to stay on that positive road, but you should be prepared for something to come that's going to be negative, because it will come. So prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for the difficulties in life that are going to come. Expect challenges, because life changes. Circumstances change. Sometimes those circumstances, like we learned not too long ago in the world, are beyond our control and things change. How do we adapt? So be prepared. Expect challenges. Be resilient. Be confident. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Have the courage to face those difficulties. It takes courage to face the difficulties in life. If we flee when things get tough and we lack courage, I mean, think about D-Day. If you haven't, maybe you should. Think about those men on those amphibious boats or whatever they were that were approaching the beaches of Normandy, Omaha Beach, and the others. And think about the men that had the courage to just hit that beach and start fighting. Could you imagine what that would have been like? Could you imagine the fear that they had to subdue inside them, knowing that there was a good chance they were probably going to die? But yet they stormed the beaches of Normandy. They stormed the beaches at Omaha Beach. They stormed those beaches, and they won because they were resilient. They had courage in the face of difficulty. That's what we need to do. That's what you need to do. That's what I need to do. And it takes effort. It takes work. It's not just something that you can think about. Like, oh, I'm going to do this. You actually have to practice it, which means you might have to go through some difficult times. Hopefully those difficult times maybe aren't so difficult in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I pop on social media and every day somebody's posting something about being sick, some sort of illness, whether it be cancer or something that they have to deal with over a long period of time. Then there's others that may have lost a job. Now they have to deal with that and the uncertainty of what comes next. But how do you bounce back from that? How are you resilient? And are you resilient enough to do that? See, there's a difference. People have focused on recently mental health. Mental health. And there's a difference, I believe, between mental health and mental fitness. And I think mental fitness, physical fitness, and the soul kind of go together. But when you're not physically fit, you don't feel like doing anything. You don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to go for walks. You don't want to do anything. You just kind of sit around, maybe eat, watch TV, whatever. Kind of a lazy life, a life of like a sloth. But if you're physically fit, you want to go out and you want to do things, be active, get out. You just don't want to sit around. Sitting around drives you crazy when you're fit. And so if your mind starts to kind of deal with some difficulties, your physical fitness might push you to, okay, I got to go out and at least walk. I got to go out and maybe just hit the gym, pump some iron, maybe run some laps, whatever it is that you do. Your body's going to push you and your mind is going to be like, okay, fine, let's just go do it. But if you're not physically fit and then your mind goes there, then you're just going to be a blob. No motivation, no nothing to get you going. So there's a difference between mental health and mental fitness. And if we start focusing on mental fitness, then we can have good days, bad days, because it's a fitness journey. Just like when we exercise, we have good days, we have bad days. Here's something that might be able to help you. Simon Sinek.
We talk about mental health all the time. And the problem with the term mental health is we treat it like it's a goal, that if you're anything other than perfect, there's something wrong with you, right? Which of course is nonsense, right? That if you're anything other than happy all the time, then you're struggling with your mental health. We know when we do physical fitness, sometimes your muscles hurt, sometimes you have a good workout, sometimes you have a bad workout, sometimes you're strong, sometimes you're weak, sometimes you got a ton of sleep and you can't work out, sometimes you got no sleep and you're like on fire, you have the best run of your life. And we don't call, there's no goal. It's fitness. Like it's something you're constantly working. And I think I stopped calling it mental health and I started calling it mental fitness. And so having emotions, having a down day, being depressed, you know, feeling lonely, like all of these things are fine and they're totally healthy. If you get stuck in any one of them, that's a problem. But by the way, if you get stuck in happiness, that's a problem too. You know, and so I think we have to work on our mental fitness, which is learning how to have feelings, learning how to just be in our feelings. Because I think we've set up an unrealistic expectation for ourselves that if you have a negative feeling, there's something wrong with you. And if you have a negative feeling, it turns out you're human. And I think the biggest skill that's lacking in all of that is learning how to ask for help. That when we do have negative feelings, where the first thing we should be doing is reaching out to a friend, we don't.
Yeah, so you have to be realistic in life. Change happens. The good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to experience that. So we need to have realistic expectations. We talk about that a lot on the show, having realistic expectations. We're not perfect. There's nothing perfect about us. We're going to do things. We're going to break the commandments. We're going to break the tenets of Buddhism and Hindu and all the stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Nobody's perfect. So we don't need to have an expectation of perfection. But what we can do is have an expectation of, this is what I'm going through. This is how I'm going to deal with it. Sure, I might be depressed one day, but I'm not going to be stuck in it. I'm going to bounce back. Yes, I lost my job. I'm bummed out. And maybe you go through the cycles of grief. And then you're like, okay, I need to get a job. So you bounce back and look for the next opportunity. Or maybe you are lonely. I'm sure a lot of people, we all go through that loneliness of some sort. You might be around a lot of people a lot of times, but yet you're still lonely. But don't get stuck in it. Change your circumstances. Have the resiliency to change your circumstances. Happiness, the positive side of it. If you're stuck in happiness all the time, that's unrealistic. So have realistic expectations of life. And if necessary, ask for help. Help from a friend, help from a professional, help from a minister. It's okay to have a support group around you. It's okay to ask for help. There's no sign of weakness asking for help. So if you need it, ask for help. But we're not perfect. But we do have to have a positive mindset to have a good mental attitude. And that requires optimism. We have to be able to believe in the possibility of good outcomes and focusing on solutions rather than the problem. If we're constantly focusing on the problem, how are we going to ever solve it? What's the solution? And if we focus on solutions to things, that's going to help our mind become stronger. The mind's a muscle, it's got to work out. And if we're problem solving, then we're focusing on something that can create positive change. We talked about resilience. You have to bounce back from adversity with strength and determination. Be determined. See, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and confidence includes determination. It includes strength. It includes taking on the challenges, knowing that you can overcome it, doing a job that you know you can do, getting an outcome that you know you can achieve. You know, self-empowerment is something that I always go back and forth with, because I think that it can be a false sense of security if you deal with self-empowerment. I think you have to be careful with it. But if you're taking responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, your emotions, if you are dealing with a positive mindset and you're realizing, okay, it's going to take me to do this. And people will tell you that all the time. Even if you talk to experts, they'll tell you, you have to make the change. You have to make the initiative, the first step, whatever it is. You have to do something. I have to do something. And I think that's where the self-empowerment can come in. If we're taking those first steps, I mean, the show is 2 steps ahead. And the original concept of the show was that in life, a little bit older than the college kids I was around at the time at the inception of the show. And so being a second step ahead, you know, there's the right step and then there's the next step. And so if I can share the pitfalls of life, the successes, the failures to the college kids that were around me at the time listening to the show, then that's what I wanted to do, was just be a step ahead, that second step, 2 steps ahead in life. from those college students. And it was how to overcome things. Now, obviously, the show has kind of meandered and evolved from there, but still kind of that concept. What can we do to get ahead in life? What can we do to take that step or that second step so that we don't go backwards? We have to have constructive thinking, focusing on productive thoughts rather than dwelling on negativity and pessimism. Constructive thinking takes practice, takes purpose to be able to do that. A lot of times we can't deal with constructive thinking because we're dealing with the negativity, the pessimism. I can't do it, therefore I'm not going to do it. I can't. Just stop there. If you say you can't, then you probably won't. If you say you can, then you probably will. Mindset is everything. You got to be flexible with yourself. You got to be adaptable because change comes at us and we don't know what that change is going to be like. So if we are having a constructive thought and we're producing positive thoughts as we try to overcome things that are coming at us, whether it's good or bad, and we have flexible and adaptability to face those challenges, that's going to be helpful too. And then the other thing, the number one thing that I've seen in life is when it comes to self-belief. People do not believe in themselves. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have the confidence in your own ability, in your own strengths. That's probably one of the most frustrating things I've seen in life. The most frustrating thing I've seen in life. People that don't believe in themselves. When I have more belief in you, your abilities and your strengths than you do, something's wrong. When I see potential in you that you don't see in yourself, and then I tell you that you have these strengths and these abilities and you yet still deny it, that is frustrating. People have so much self-doubt. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to have this positive mindset about you, that you can achieve things, that you can do things. And especially when I see students with the negativity that they can't do some things, it drives me crazy. But you have to have belief in yourself. If you do some of those things, your mindset is going to be positive, but you still got to keep developing it. And that's where emotions come in. Emotions will drive us. Emotions, whether it's love, hate, whatever. We see it in society today. Talk about the 10 Commandments, the emotion comes out. No one stops to think about anything. They're just flying off the handle with their emotion of, oh my gosh, separation of church and state, 10 Commandments, indoctrination, this whole thing. And yet they don't stop to realize that, like Gavin Newsom says, oh, the education system in Louisiana is bad, and you're focused on the 10 Commandments. Well, the 10 Commandments could instill in someone the necessary things to help combat the negativity in their life that might make them a better student. Honoring your father and mother, not stealing, not murdering. Like we see in California a lot of violations of the commandments in California from the top down, including the governor. But you have to have emotional regulation. You have to learn to manage your emotions effectively. We've talked about that just recently too. And again, in order to be able to do all this, we have to have physical health. We have to have a physical health to us. And it doesn't have to be, top notch. It doesn't have to be like the best of the best, but we just have to have some physical health, regular exercise, proper nutrition, adequate sleep, so that we can control our emotions, so that we can have sound mind to figure out what we need to do. And we can do that by challenging ourselves. We can step outside our comfort zone. I think stepping outside your comfort zone is something we should all do. I've done it on a regular basis. Do things that I'm not comfortable with. What do you mean? Well, okay. Maybe I'll teach a math class when I don't feel I'm confident in teaching a math class, but the college thinks I can for this particular class. So maybe I'll do it. Maybe I will go and hang out with these people or do this job because down the line, it might serve me well for my goals in life. But right now, everybody else is going out on a Saturday night, having fun, doing whatever. Well, I'm going to work a Saturday night. Maybe I meet new friends, meet new people, whatever it is. Get outside of yourself, challenge yourself, setting goals that you might not be comfortable with. Push yourself to the limits. You got to challenge yourself. And then when you're going through all this, you have to have time to reflect on yourself. What's going on? Are you achieving your goals? What are your thoughts like? What are your actions like? What are your beliefs like? Have you changed your beliefs? If so, what's influenced that change? And it's a constant. Set goals, reflect. Set goals, reflect. Okay, are my goals achievable? Are my goals too simple? Are they too difficult? Do I have reasonable expectations? My physical health is here, so yeah, I'm not going to go run a marathon, but maybe I can do a mile. Okay, I've done a mile for a while. Now maybe I can do 2 or 3. Okay, I've been learning this concept for my business. Now I think I'm set to start to implement it into my business. Reflect, set goals. Reflect, set goals. Stay flexible. You have to have the ability to adapt because maybe you don't learn something as quickly as you think you should, or maybe you haven't done something enough to now implement it into your business or to achieve physical fitness or whatever. But you got to stay flexible because if you're challenging yourself to push yourself, keep getting better, keep getting better, keep getting better. Reflect, set your goals, whatever they might be, or maybe just change them, maybe adjust them, adapt them. Doesn't have to be a whole new set of goals, but you just reflect and this is working, this really isn't. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I adjust this a little bit, whatever. And then you got to stay flexible because, again, sometimes you might get busy in life. Sometimes you have more time to work on your hobbies if that's hobby related. Other times you have to work more. You got to stay flexible. And then I think the most important thing that you have to do, I think I mentioned earlier, well, I know I mentioned earlier, but self-doubt, right? Believing in yourself is the number one mistake or the number one thing that I see in people that cause them from achieving success is self-doubt. They don't believe in themselves. Okay. That's the number one problem I see in people. They don't believe in themselves. Then the second thing I see in general is people just don't have fun. You can't laugh, enjoy life, have fun, and whatever it is you're doing. You don't take time to engage in those activities that bring you joy, that are going to provide laughter, whatever it is. Something, because when you have laughter, when you have joy, when you have happiness, when you have fun, they say laughter is the best medicine. When you're doing something fun, engaging in activity, it's going to improve your mental health. It's going to improve your mind, your body, your soul. All that stuff is going to get better. Now, it's not a cure. It's not a remedy. Think of it more of like therapy, maybe. If I'm constantly working, I'm not having fun, life's going to suck. If I'm constantly having fun, I'm not working, well, that's going to come back and bite you in the backside too. But a fine balance of it makes for a good life, makes for a balanced mind, balanced body, balanced soul. And so you have to have fun. You have to laugh. And again, you're staying flexible in that. You're having balance in life. You're being realistic about it. You're not overspending because you want to go on some exotic trip somewhere. It's all in balance. And so when you do all that we've been discussing, you have a better opportunity in life to be successful, whatever that success might be. Or maybe you just have a better shot at having a better quality of life. And I'm not talking about material things. I mean, we've talked about the commandments and we've talked about the tenets of Buddha or Buddhism and Hinduism. And a lot of them have to do with lack of possessions, doing good, helping others, offering charity, not stealing, not murder, giving up your possessions. A lot of those tenets we talked about in the beginning of the show have to do with doing something good that affects your life positively. And that's what we need to do. Focus on that. You need to evaluate. And you can do that by starting out and just evaluating your life. You haven't done anything. And now you're thinking, well, maybe I want to do some of this stuff. Well, start with an evaluation. You have to sit and look at yourself and be like, okay, what am I doing now? How's my life going now? Here's what I want to change. Here's what I want to continue doing, but maybe I want to improve upon it. Maybe I need more balance here. You have to sit down and take an evaluation. And then once you've evaluated whatever it is, and you want to make a change, set your goals, be realistic, expect change, be confident, be resilient, be determined, be prepared for the negativity that's going to come, for the waves that are going to hit you and tumble you over. Be prepared for all that. Make a game plan. But it starts with a positive mind, healthy body, strong soul, mind, body, soul. Get those three things aligned, and the chances for a better life will increase exponentially. This is Two Steps Ahead Podcast, episode 200, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. Hey, check out our website, radiowarp.com. That's radio, W-A-R-P, radiowarp.com. You can click on the Two Steps Ahead Podcast logo. All of our past shows will pop up in video form, and so you can watch them. You can click on any of them, and they'll take you to our Rumble page, so you can watch them there, maybe download them. You can also click the orange banner that goes across the center of the page. That will take you to our SoundCloud account, our audio account, and you can download and take those episodes with you on the go. There's also some other things on the website that might be of interest to you and your listening pleasure, so radiowarp.com. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, Google Podcasts, although I think Google Podcasts might be going away. But anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can also do an internet search of TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, and we pop up. Hey Siri, hey Google, hey Alexa, play TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, and that episode will play. You can find us on social media, Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. We've got different things going on there as well. So we are pretty easy to find. And you can reach out. You can email the show, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. That's twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. And just keep in mind that everything two is TWO. So TWO podcast, Two Steps Ahead Podcast at whatever. And so you can find us Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, in your internet search, wherever. We're pretty easy to find. And so again, take a look at where your life is. What do you want it to be like? What do you want to do with it? No matter what age you are, you can start now, and you can start anew, start fresh, and make life how you want it. But you have to have a strong mind, a strong body, a strong soul. And oftentimes that might be having the strength to stand alone in your convictions and not always have to go along with what other people say. Because when you stand strong in your own convictions, you might be out on an island. Are you prepared for that? So again, 200 episodes. We thank you for being a part of the journey. We look forward to the future. We look forward to you continuing your shotgun ride with us on this journey of life. Again, we always try to bring you shows that might be beneficial, that might entertain. You may agree, you may disagree. You may want to share with others. Whatever it is, it's a journey that we go through, and we appreciate you listening. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to many more adventures ahead, God willing. Two Steps Ahead Podcast, encouraging you, take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Hey, thanks for listening. Do tell a friend, and until next time, God bless.